Hey guys, it's Stacy. This is going to be my 7 and 7 readathon wrap up. I meant to film this a few days ago because it ended on Saturday and today is Tuesday. But kind of out of the blue, I decided to switch filming locations in my house. And I've spent the last 3 days rearranging bedrooms, painting rooms, getting rid of a bunch of junk, and getting a bookcase as a background. I've always had this bookcase, but it was like out in the hallway and it's really dark out there, so it wasn't a good place to film in front of it. So that is what I've been doing the last couple days instead of filming my 7 to 7 wrap up. The 7 and 7 readathon comes right at the tail end of the booktubeathon, which I participated in. I found out about this readathon on the day that it started, so I wasn't really prepared for it, and I know that there was no way I could read 7 books in 7 days. Was not going to happen. But I heard that you could do short stories, so that is what I did. I ended up reading 2 fairy tales out of this book, Beyond the Woods, Fairy Tales Retold. I read a fairy tale about Snow White, which was okay, a little bit bizarre. It actually had Jesus and the devil in it, which was very unexpected for a Snow White story. And the second one I read was about Hansel and Gretel, or the gingerbread man, or a gingerbread house. It was very confusing and hard to follow. I wasn't really sure what the point of that story was. But anyway, that's all I got to out of this book. I will try to read more short stories out of this book at a future time. So the other book that I wanted to read short stories from is Edgar Allen Poe's stories. I've only read 1 or 2 of his stories back in middle school or high school, and I remember liking it, but I didn't pay too much attention to it back at the time. It didn't make that much of an impression on me back then. But this time around, reading these stories, I have discovered that I am absolutely in love with Poe. He probably is my favorite writer. Probably. The way he writes absolutely blew me away. And it's not even so much of the story that he was writing, because a lot of them are very out there. A lot of them are really out there, and they're kind of remind me of stories that psychopaths would read. So it wasn't so much even the story, even though I do enjoy horror and scary, creepy stuff, but it was more so his actual writing. How he wrote was amazing. So I marked all the stories that I read so I don't forget which ones I read, and I'll let you know what they were and what I thought of them. So I read Murders in the Rue Morgue, which is one that I read in middle school. This story is set in Paris. There are some murders. This very clever man finds out who did the murders. And I actually did remember who did the murders, so I wasn't surprised by it in the end, but I still did enjoy rereading the story. I think when I read the story in middle school, it might have been a condensed version. I don't remember a lot of the stuff that was in this one, so I probably read like an edited down version. I read The Pit and the Pendulum, which I'll say is probably one of my favorites of his. I hadn't read that one before, and the story is really horrifying. It's about a man who was sentenced to death in a horrible way during the Inquisition. He wakes up in a cell in the dark. He doesn't know where he is or what's going to happen to him, and he discovers through kind of walking around, he almost falls into this giant pit that's in the middle of the cell. There's water in there, there's rats in there. He is terrified of this pit, and then after a few days of kind of being in the dark and not knowing what's happening, he gets drugged and he wakes up and he's strapped down to this table, and there is a pendulum with like a razor, not a razor, but you know what I mean, a sharp knife thing swinging over top of him. It lowers incredibly slowly, so he has lots of time to think about the way he's going to die and how terrible it's going to be. And let me just say that while I was reading this, it totally got into my head. I felt like I was that man strapped on the table. My heart was beating out of my chest. I was anxious. I was upset. He really did a terrific job at making the reader feel while they're reading. I'm still upset about this story, but it was A+. It was amazing. I read The Fall of the House of Usher. This one was really good too. I like the way he described stuff in the story. I just want to read you guys the very first sentence of this story because this first sentence is perfection in my mind. It's really long because we know Poe and his run-on sentences. There's 9 commas in this sentence. 9. Anyway, I want to read you this sentence. You guys tell me what you think of it because I love it. During the whole of a dull, dark, and soundless day in the autumn of the year, when the clouds hung oppressively low in the heavens, I had been passing alone on horseback through a singularly dreary tract of country, and at length found myself, as the shades of evening drew on, within view of the melancholy house of Usher. I love it. I don't know what it is about that sentence, but that sentence is everything that I want in a first sentence. I read the story, The Premature Burial, which is about a man who has a health condition to where he basically falls asleep or goes into a coma-like state where it looks like he's dead. And he can be in that state for quite a long time. And so he has this horrible fear that he's going to be buried alive. I don't want to say what happens to him in the story, but that one was very distressing also. In that story, I also felt like I was him and going through what he was going through, the way his terror was described. So I definitely felt a part of the story. I read The Cask of Amontillado, which blew me away. I think that might have been the first one that I read. That one is about 2 men who are friends, and one of them tricks the other one into a terrible death. I don't want to say too much about it and give away all the details of it because it's a very short story. So if I say much, I basically tell you the entire thing. But that one was totally worth reading. If you're going to read a Poe story, I really recommend reading that one. I read The Telltale Heart, which is probably one of his more famous stories. This one was good, but it wasn't my favorite one, although, again, the writing is fantastic and you really do feel like you're in the story and you're a part of all of the emotion that's going on. This one is about a man who kills someone and buries him, I think it was under the floorboard in a room. And basically, the dead man's heart gives him away. And the last Poe story I read that completely stole my heart is Ligeia or Ligeia. I'm not really sure how you say the name. I think she's supposed to be German in the story. But this one, oh, the writing was so beautiful in this one. This one is about a man who loved Ligeia or Ligeia so much, and she becomes sick and she dies, and what happens to him and his grief for her and how he attempts to move on but doesn't. It was breathtakingly beautiful. The words that this man used to describe his love and this woman. So this story is not a poem, it is a short story, but I felt like a lot of the parts of it are written as if he's writing poetry, just the sheer beauty of it. This book that I picked up only has his short stories in it. It doesn't have his poems. And so I'm going to be getting his book full of poems and reading all of those because I need some more Poe in my life. This is not enough. All right, guys, so that is my late wrap up for the 7-7 readathon. If any of you have done the readathon, let me know how you guys did down below. I will be back with another video very soon. I've been reading other books along with these books, and one of them especially I really want to talk about because it's probably my favorite book of the year. Alright guys, I am going to go ahead and go, but I will see y'all soon. Bye!